Rashea, written by Fairycrest, read by Rashi. Alhaitham and Kaveh have been married for nearly 4 years now. In those 4 years, not much has changed. The arguments are still loud and would lead to a pouting Kaveh at times. The blonde is still the one cleaning the entire house, and the scribe for the groceries, and additional many gifts he would bring his spouse. Their friends also haven't changed much. Some nights in the bars and TCG. Nothing much has changed in the past 4 years, except for Nahida and her constant press for her quote-unquote grandkids. Every time the Archon would slip these within meetings, Alhaitham could only groan in frustration. Not only does the god do that in front of the other sages, she also dons that innocent smile on her face that, Archon forbid, Alhaitham just wants to wipe off. The man flinched a bit as he recalled the conversation he just had with the Archon from today's meeting. Lesser Lord Kusanali, why don't you press Sino and Tainari on this one and get off my back? This time, he didn't try to hide the ire gracing his face, as his eyes silently sent the message for the other sages to get their asses out of the meeting room.
Oh, but they already gave me Kale.
Then be satisfied with Kale.
But they're little Sinos and little Tainaris. I want to see what my grandkids would look like if it was yours and Kave's.
The child-looking Archon smiled at the thought. They'd look like you, I guess. Unfazed as usual, Alhaitham gave a reply that he didn't expect the Archon would welcome. I mean, isn't that great? Giving up, Alhaitham let out a soft sigh before turning his eyes to the Archon. My wife and I talked about this issue. The Grand Sage started. Kaveh is all right with the idea of a kid, but it is me who said I'm not.
Why not?
Surprisingly not. The previous meeting room became a counseling room with just one change of a topic. The man trailed off, thinking a bit. It seems whatever discussion they had must have been so deep that he was thinking about it quite well. I'm not ready to share Kaveh with others yet. Nahida coughs out the entirety of the tea she was chugging. She coughs loud enough to cover the exact same reaction of the other sages listening outside the meeting room. Who can blame them? These old men were actually quite supportive of the couple, especially since they are well aware of the feelings their Grand Sage has for his senior, even when they were still students. Hearing the younger's response could only make them sigh in frustration. So, you're the problem here, huh? The sages thought simultaneously. Even that thought crossed the Archon's mind, as she just stared at her self-proclaimed child in disbelief.
And what did Kave say about this?
He just gaped at me and looked all confused. He looked adorable.
Alhaitham, your children are not others, some stranger, you know.
Oh, but they are. We don't know them. They just sprout out, and then I'd have to share my wife with them. At this point, it was now Nahida's turn to inwardly groan in frustration. Her gentle smile faltered as her brow twitched in annoyance. It's up to you, then. The Archon didn't say anything then, and left. And now, Alhaitham is preparing to go home from a long day of work. When he got home, however, he arrived with an unexpected greeting. Kaveh at the door, worry lacing his ethereal face as he paced around the porch. I'm home. He approached the man and immediately captured him in an embrace, to which the blonde returned, and even added on with a quick kiss to his cheeks, one that melted the day's exhaustion away for Alhaitham. Something wrong? You should be inside. I was waiting for you. Something tugged at Alhaitham's heart, his grip around his spouse tightening. 4 years of marriage, and Kaveh still knows how to make his heart beat like a teenager. We have a problem. The hands that were about to turn the knob of the front door came to an abrupt stop, and Alhaitham's gaze fell to his wife. Kaveh's face didn't change. You'll know when you're inside. The instant Alhaitham flung the door open, a small blob of blonde peeked out from the couch, green hue sparkling a bit. Alhaitham walked closer and stopped upon seeing a young girl not older than 8. In her hand was the finished book he forgot to put away earlier in the morning. The child looked beautiful. Familiarly beautiful. Hey, this is Rashea. Apparently, she's our daughter. For the first time, Alhaitham's mind went blank. No, not really blank. It was quite the opposite, rather. A barrage of questions are now in his head, enough for 10 volumes of books. I got you pregnant? Since when? However, those were the only 2 that he managed to blurt, and that question made his alleged daughter gawk at him, and his wife rubbed a hand on his temples. Of course you did not. Oh, you idiot. And since Kaveh is now agitated, he replied with a snare. A ley line disruption happened at the construction site I was working on, and from that, this child just emerged. As if seeing her cue, the young child smiled sweetly and opened her mouth to speak.
Yep. Moments ago, I was with my father in his office, and then a flash of light went whoosh! And now I'm here.
The child grinned.
My name's Rashea. My mother is Kaveh, and my father is Alhaitham. See?
She pulls out a card with her name and picture on it, and below it is her parents' name for contact. And indeed, it was their name in there. Alhaitham could only stare at the child. That now makes sense why she looks so familiar. She looks a lot like Kaveh. I should get Lesser Lord Kusanali. Huh. Alhaitham's brain seemed to lag, especially when Kaveh picked up the kid, who immediately wrapped her small, frail arms around his wife's neck and nuzzled his cheeks. The image was something new to Alhaitham. Kaveh coddling a child with his eyes, a child with his wife's face, his wife's smile. The Wanderer passed by earlier, so I asked him to deliver a message to the Archon. They'll be here in a bit, Kaveh explained, his hand unconsciously reaching out to ruffle the braided locks. This kid and you, however, need to eat. Oh, what are you doing? I'm passing the child to you, obviously. Kaveh sighed as he passed the child to his stone-stiff husband. If you drop her, I'll kill you. Yep, Kaveh was smitten with the kid. So what? The child was so like his husband, he couldn't help it. The architect left to the kitchen, immediately leaving the younger girl to her alleged father, who was still staring into nothing, as his hand unconsciously, protectively, wrapped around the kid's small frame. Dinner preparation was fun, for Kaveh, especially staring at his husband and the small child simultaneously flip the pages of the books they have on their lap. His husband would glance at the child constantly, and the child would bother the man if there was a difficult word she didn't understand. So, Rashea, Kaveh started, as he was making desserts in the kitchen for the child to eat. What do your parents do? The kid looked up from her book and smiled gently. Seeing her smile like that a lot reminded Alhaitham of his wife's innocence and gullibility.
Mommy is an architect. He would make buildings. He made a palace once. My daddy is a grand sage. He has many books at home. We have the same house as this, but Mommy and I painted the walls just last week. So there was a lot of flowers now.
The 2 adults can only stare at each other as Kaveh brings the meal to their table. Is that so? Do you like to paint?
Yes, I do. Mommy taught me how to paint, and Daddy would buy me many types of watercolors. Sometimes he buys too much, and Mommy would get mad at him.
How are your parents now, by the way?
Well, Mommy's doing good. He even won an award for a sculpture he made. And I heard Daddy fought with a fatui who tried to make a move on Mommy. What's make a move mean, Mommy?
Kaveh inhaled sharply as he glared at his husband. It wasn't me, mouthed the man who's receiving the glare. It means touching someone in a bad way. Alhaitham, though, didn't hold back and explained to the child what make a move meant.
Thank you for dinner, Mommy.
You're quite welcome. The child was so polite and well-raised. The child was very appreciative of what was given to her, and even went so far as to compliment the cooking. At that point, the two already got used to her presence when Nahida arrived. Upon explaining the situation, Kaveh urged the Archon to return the child immediately to her realm.
Why the rush? I mean, shouldn't you enjoy the presence of such a cute child?
Lesser Lord Kusanali, that kid disappeared in front of Alhaitham. Now, whether it was from the future or whatever dimension there is, I know for a fact that my goddamn husband will wreak havoc if this child doesn't come back. Kaveh glanced at his husband, who was now as comfortable to sit the young girl on his lap as they read a book together. And, as that child's mother, in whatever realm she came from, if my child is not returned, I would lose my mind. Nahida smiled gently at the blonde, whose eyes didn't leave the two.
All right, then. Let's give her back.
Kaveh approached the two with a small smile. Rashea, it's time to go home, sweetie. The child looked up from the book and smiled at the immediate sight of her mother. I really enjoyed you being with us. However, it's time for you to go back. Your mom and dad might be worried. Upon seeing the Archon, the child immediately understood and removed herself from Alhaitham's hold.
I understand.
The child bowed, and once again dawned such a sweet smile on her face.
Thank you for your hospitality. And when I go back, I will still pray for your eternal happiness.
The child then approached the two adults, giving them a hug, before her body dissipated into nothing. The Grand Sage's house was now, once again, a house for two.
Well, that was solved.
Nahida laughed off as she bid the couple goodbye and left, leaving a quiet Kaveh within the embrace of his husband. Vey? Alhaitham started, his hand tucking his wife's hair behind his ear. Let's have sex. Kaveh blinked once, twice, before his head looked up with a confused glare. However, a playful look on Alhaitham's face was not there. In fact, he looked like he had just pulled something heavy out of his chest. Let's fuck till we have a Rashea of our own. Kaveh could only smile gently, a smile the young kid would always give when they talked to her. You asked for it. Goodness, sweetie, there you are. The young child was scooped in an embrace the instant she was back in her father's office. Her father held her in his arms, hair disheveled, as if he just had a marathon of his life. Your mother will cook me alive if anything were to happen to you. The gray-haired man carried the child gently, afraid to create any damage. What happened, my sweet? Where did the light take you? With a big grin, the child faced her father, reading the same eyes as hers.
Daddy, guess what I saw? I saw you when you were younger.
Alhaitham's eyes softened, as if he knew what his child was talking about. Oh? He gently pulled the child closer and planted a kiss on her forehead. I know what happened there.
What?
Rashea's eyes sparkled. It was the reason Mommy and Daddy had Rashea.